Шановні колеги, вибачте, будь ласка, за тривалу затримку. Ми
Esteemed colleagues, we are sorry for the delay. We continue our work. We give the floor to the first deputy director of the OSCE mission in Ukraine, Mr. Hook.
Good afternoon. I regret to report last week we saw a sharp increase in the level of violence. The total number of explosions the SMM recorded, just one component of the ceasefire violations, tripled compared to the previous week, reaching over 3,000. The escalation was particularly pronounced across the contact line along the Sviatlodarsk-Debaltsevo road. There, in fact, a 700% increase in the number of ceasefire violations recorded there compared to the previous week. The Shirokine-Kominternovo area, which constitutes almost a quarter of all recorded ceasefire violations, also show a sharp increase in ceasefire violations. We recorded there 373 explosions last week, a figure not matched since last September. A 60% increase in the number of violations was recorded on the western and northern outskirts of Horlivka, which was the scene of 15% of all ceasefire violations recorded last week. Thankfully, the Luhansk region returned to relatively quiet times, with our monitors there recording the lowest number of ceasefire violations in over 5 weeks. The main hotspot remained the Yavdivka-Yasinovata-Donetsk airport triangle, where a third of all ceasefire violations were recorded. There, the increase compared to the previous week was 80%. In just 1 hour on Wednesday, our monitors in Yasinovata heard 236 explosions. Visualization, first slide please, might help to get a better understanding of the scale of the problem in that area. Here on the graph, you can see what has been happening last week and over the past 3 days of the week. As you can see, it shows an almost consistently steady rise in the number of ceasefire violations. And the risk for more violations remain. The sites are too close to each other in all of these hotspots I have mentioned. Moreover, it is clear that the sites have failed to withdraw all weapons from in and around the security zone. As the fighting has intensified last week along the Sviatlodarsk-Debaltsevo road, our monitors observed as both sides introduced even more proscribed weapons into the security zone in that area in clear breach of the Minsk commitments. On 29th of June, for example, our monitors saw a convoy consisting of 3 self-propelled howitzers and 9 tanks traveling north near so-called LPR-controlled Chornoivkine. And on Sunday, they saw 6 howitzers being transported south near government-controlled Bakhmut, formerly Artemivsk. Throughout the week, we did in fact observe a total of 77 weapons in violation of the withdrawal lines. Perhaps significantly, the previous week we had only observed 21. The presence of other weapons, in particular armed combat vehicles, inside the security zone is also worrying. Meanwhile, we continue to observe a high state of readiness. On Tuesday, our monitors observed live fire exercise in areas controlled by the so-called LPR southeast of Luhansk, just immediately outside the security zone in the vicinity of Krulik. Also on Tuesday, at 2 other training grounds in the same general so-called LPR-controlled area, Uspenka and Mirne, our monitor saw a total of 26 tanks. These highly mobile weapons are outside the security zone, but they are easy within striking range of the contact line, and they and their crews are obviously operational. And then last week, our monitors in so-called LPR controlled Chornukine saw a military type truck traveling north, transporting ammunition boxes. Readiness is evident all across the contact line, and the sides have dug in with trenches snaking their way through farmland across roads. Now on the picture here, you can see we don't have a picture, I'm afraid. This is the situation at the bridge in Stanica Luhanska, where we have been identifying the 2 sites there, and you can see what our UAVs have seen, the close proximity of the 2 sites. You see on the left-hand side of the picture the last so-called LPR controlled checkpoint across the river on the northern side of the river, and just a few hundred meters up the road on the right-hand side you see the first Ukrainian-controlled checkpoint. They see each other on that distance, and across this road there, any civilian that wants to cross the contact line in Luhansk has to cross. We have seen in Shirokine, Yasinovata Avdivka, Zaitsevo, and in areas northeast of Mariupol, where this close proximity leads to. And one small spark there can set off an inferno. It has been relatively calm in Stanica Luhanska, so it is still not too late. And I appeal the sides to disengage. To some people, it might seem like a step back, but in reality, it is 2 steps forward, and many more steps are required, but they are the first steps on the path to peace. And if the sides refuse to take this step back, civilians will inevitably continue to suffer. Last week in Novo Alexandrivka, in the western Luhansk region, in a garden close to an inhabited house, our monitors saw 12 fresh craters caused by automatic grenade launcher rounds. That house is located between two positions. On the one hand side, Ukrainian armed forces positions just some 400 to 600 meters to the west, and the so-called LPR positions just over 2 kilometers to the east. And such practice actually forced our monitors in Svetlodarsk to stay overnight in Kramatorsk 5 nights in a row, severely limiting our ability to monitor and report on a major hotspot. Artillery systems were placed and were fired from within 200 meters and their forward patrol base. The SMM is at least in a position to mitigating measures to protect its monitors. The people of Alexandrivka and Chastia and in places all along the contact line do not have options. They must face the inevitable return fire that destroys their homes and places them and their children at risk of death and injury. And dear friends, we have seen this week many cases of this on both sides of the contact line. I would like to recall an incident that was an accident, but one which would never have happened if there had been no conflict. I'm of course referring to the death of 3 young brothers on Monday in the so-called DPR-controlled Jena Kiev, coming so soon after the death of 2 young boys in Komiternove. And I wonder how many more children need to die before those responsible put an end to this conflict. Clearly, something must be done. This volatility, this preparedness, this build-up, this violence, this destruction and death must end. As usual, at the end of my statement, I would like to inform you about the latest mission numbers. As of today, the mission has 702 monitors, of whom 593 are deployed to the east. In addition, there are 306 Ukrainian colleagues and 85 other international staff working for the SMM. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Are there any questions? Чи є запитання або уточнення?
Are there any questions or clarifications?
And ask a question.
My name is Andrei Mihal. I'm a consultant. Dramatic information, but I heard OSCE form some groups to monitor election on that part, how it's correlated with situation, present situation on the east of the Ukraine, and I want to hear your ideas how we can provide election on the territory when the situation dramatically change.
Thank you. The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission is a civilian, unarmed observer mission. Our mandate is given to us by 57 participating states, and it includes the monitoring and reporting of the security situation and the facilitation of dialogue on the ground. Any additional function that the OSCE should be taken on would have to be agreed by the 57 participating states in a new consensus decision. The information that our monitors produce every day is the objective information based on which those who need to make these decisions can base their decisions on. Thank you.
Чи є ще питання або уточнення? We don't have further questions, so at this point the press conference is finished.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and looking forward to seeing you here next week.
Thank you.
Шановні колеги, на цьому робочий день в Україні